It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. So, John, what you had mentioned this earlier, and this is one of the directions I wanted to go. Is I feel like you've scaled this business, like you said, a couple $1 million, and you mentioned this. I want to get into some of like the ups and downs of the people thing, and we already talked about a little bit, just you get new jobs as you scale the business and how you have to adapt to that. But I feel like in the automotive space, you also had this transition that you mentioned from like cars that were mechanical to cars that are very electronic now. And that's almost like you got to reinvent your damn self. How did that, from the outside looking in, it like, to me, it just feels like it was like a moment in time. Like all of a sudden everything is just a freaking computer. For you, I'm sure, like, I'd imagine it was a little bit slower and you kind of like, a little bit of this started happening, a little bit of that, but now you're damn near a friggin' like programmer, electrical engineer, I'd assume. How did that transition change you, change your business, change who you need to hire? That seems like a pretty big pivot for an industry.
So it was, and it all happened in America. It happened in the early 90s, and really what it came down to is DC electrical current. And so once you understand DC current, then from there, it's just more of it. And it's a little bit more complicated, but it's just voltage in and reference points and what you get out and grounds. And
let me do this though. Let me do this. This is partially for me, but I'm going to act like it's for everybody else as if I know. What does DC stand for, and what's the alternative to DC?
Direct current as opposed to AC current, which your home is AC current, alternating current. So it's a low voltage. It's a different type of how current flows.
So were vehicles alternating current before the 90s?
Well, the alternator works off of AC, but that's for charging the battery. But the rest of the car was DC, even back from the beginning days when we first had incandescent bulbs. That's all DC current in a car.
Okay, so they just started implementing a whole shitload more.
Correct. So then they put a microprocessor in that would send 5 volts out to. I'll give you a good example that layman can relate to.
That's send me. I'm the layman. I get to be the layman today.
you put a volume. You know how you have a volume on your stereo?
I do.
Put a volume on your throttle. And so what happens when you turn the knob on the stereo? It's getting louder and louder. Okay, it's sending more and more amperage or voltage or whatever. It would be amperage through it. So you do that to a sensor on the throttle, and then what it gets back, it'll know where the throttle's at. Okay, so if half throttle, that's half the voltage versus full throttle. And then it can make changes according to that. So it's basically, again, it's just DC current, and there's various sensors. There's another sensor that tells that module how warm the engine is it's a thermistor type sensor. It gives it 5 volts, and depending on the temperature, the voltage it gets back, it knows the temperature of the engine, and then it can make adjustments. And so it started out, we still had carburetors. So it would have a little solenoid in there in the carburetor that could adjust the fuel and air mixture.
What's a solenoid?
Solenoid is an on and off. It's a kind of electrical switch. It's either on or off, or it allows something to flow or shuts it off. It can be a valve.
I got you. I'm going to ask you just like the stupidest questions, partially because I don't know. Some of them I think I would know, but I don't want to just nod my head like an asshole and be like, the solenoid valves. Yeah, for sure.
I don't mean to get really technical with the terms, but to the point, it was a very slow progression, but we were working on these things, and it wasn't really that technical when you already understood how windshield wipers work.
Yeah, it was from your end. It was probably all incremental. It was like, another little chip, another little chip, another little chip. Hey, what's up, business nerd? Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a heck of a lot watching that episode. Do me a favor. Subscribe right down here. And if you really like what you saw, you got more goods right here. Check out this one or check out this one and do this. Go subscribe. Appreciate you. Work smarter, work harder. Go earn yourself some pride. Catch you on the next one.